Blessed Monday to you as we come with your daily encouragement. And I would ask, I've been doing this Bible study a little bit differently this past springtime. And part of what I've been doing is finding some verses that are actually in the evangelical Lutheran worship that complement what we've had on Sunday morning. And so they do kind of have a theme. And the theme this week is about giving it all for Jesus. Um, Mary had anointed Jesus's feet with some very expensive spikenard. In fact, it was worth more than a year's wage. And Paul and Judas complained about it and wondered, is that worth it for this one event? Well, one of the people that thought Jesus's body, Jesus's sacrifice, Jesus's passion on Holy Week was worth it was, of course, the Apostle Paul. And our second lesson we had on Sunday focused on the Apostle Paul giving it all up and counting all of the things of his life, no matter how successful they were, rubbish. In fact, he uses a stronger word. The English translators use rubbish, but the word is actually excrement. And you know the connotations of that. It is Paul saying, this is valuable, this other thing is not. But he also, in his letter to the Philippians, highlights two other people that showed this extravagant love towards Christ and specifically toward him. That is his protege, Timothy, and a guy named Epaphroditus. And Epaphroditus came from the people of one of Paul's previous places and have shown them. Well, actually, he's come from Philippi. Paul is imprisoned, and so Paul is telling him, look at Epaphroditus. He is following this example. But we're going to start with Timothy first. It says in Philippians 2, verse 19, I hope in the Lord Jesus to send Timothy to you soon, so that I may be cheered by news of you. I have no one like him who will be genuinely concerned for your welfare. All of them are seeking their own interests, not those of Christ. But Timothy's worth show you know how like a son with a father he has served with me in the work of the gospel. I hope therefore to send him as soon as I see how things go with me. And I trust in the Lord that I will also come soon. Now, the people of Philippi were a very persecuted people. It was one of Paul's missionary churches that he had founded. And just to kind of give you a background, the people of Philippi were patriotic. Now, patriotism is a two-edged sword. Sometimes we might say that we're creating an idol out of our patriotism sometime. But Paul definitely was striking at an idol in the people of Philippi. They trusted in their emperor. Their emperor was number one. In fact, the emperor in ancient Rome was elevated to being a god. And what did Paul do? He came in and said, came in and said, Jesus is my king. Jesus is my king, not emperor, whoever was in the power of the office. Now, there were truly some moderate emperors, and then there were Neros, who were even equivalent to being an antichrist in our midst. But Paul wanted to show the people of Philippi there is a king you can trust in. There is a politics you can trust in. It is the way of Jesus Christ. And so his church was very faithful to that discovery, that truth that transformed them. But it also meant that they were suffering from persecution. And so Paul would not send just anybody to check up on him. He sent his own dear son, Timothy. Now it says that it is not his dear son in the flesh, but his son in the spirit. And that happens from time to time. We might have a relationship with someone who is not our earthly father or son or daughter, but they seem to function almost that way in our life. And so the same was true of Paul, because he had something greater than even family relationships. He had something greater than even loyalty to the emperor or even to the empire, or one might say even greater loyalty to wealth or prosperity. He had a loyalty to King Jesus. And he is lifting up Timothy as an example of someone who truly knows how to put the gospel number one and everything else second. And so that is why Paul is lifting him up, not only to give him encouragement, but also to encourage them with the true gospel. Because there were many who were running around still wanting to find their salvation in the flesh, salvation through Judaic laws. There still are Christians, or at least they claim to be Christians, who are out there trying to reenact old ceremonies of ancient Judaism, thinking that the Christian church had become too pagan. No, the Christian church had become a new thing moved by the Spirit, and was not necessarily bound by the traditions of Judaism, or even the traditions of the cultures that they came from. It was focused on one thing and one thing alone, and that was Jesus, nothing else. Now, notice Paul doesn't say in his circumstances, as I've heard many say sometimes. I even have said it myself. Oh, I don't know if I'm ever going to make it. The things are getting too hard, too difficult. No, what does Paul say? I'm hopeful that I'm going to come and see you again. Even Paul waxes about this later on, about how, to be with Christ would be great, but I want to be with you. I want to serve you. In fact, that is the attitude that Paul is instilling in the people, and he sees it in Timothy. During this past year, I've had the opportunity to see some younger pastors rise up, and I've been like, oh my goodness, how did I get to this age? But then there's another part of me that's saying, oh, what useful exuberance they have. I've kind of lost some of that, but I had to remember that it's not about age or youth, it's about faithfulness to what God is doing, the new thing that God is doing. And Paul was willing to share Timothy with the people of Philippi. And so he sends his best to them, even while he is in chains. God bless you today. We trust that these continue to be words of encouragement. Take care. God bless. We'll see you next time.